How do you feel about AI? Recently, I've been introduced to it. I kind of had thought I didn't have any use for it, and I was seduced by someone telling me about all the things it could do and how it could take notes, for example, in a meeting, and then immediately print out all the narrative, and then went on to proceed to ask if it wanted a spreadsheet and all sorts of things, other things done with the data that it had recorded. And so in my recent diving down deep into alternatives of styles of living, like living in vehicles, and I was curious as to know what other types of living arrangements could be had that were out of the norm, so shall we say. And I was thinking about different vehicles, and so I did a little search for that, and I was actually very surprised. I did a quick outlay of what I needed. I wanted headroom and a vehicle on a budget, and I was really surprised at how thorough the details that were given to me were. So then I started thinking about shepherd's huts. Shepherd hut? Or anyway, a shepherd hut. And again, I was really surprised at the outcome, because not only did it tell, because I just put in, were there anybody locally or in New Zealand that did kit set shepherd huts? And it proceeded to very quickly spill the beans on what was available, and then proceeded to say, would you like me to design and draft a plan and submit it to these companies for a quote? Oh, I tell you, I was actually quite impressed. I hadn't even thought of going that far, but with that information, I thought, this has potential. Sorry, I forgot to say that it was Chat GBT that I was using, and it does have a disclaimer that comes up when you go to enter the question, that it is not always reliable, does have some misinformation, can be incorrect, can make a mistake, which I'm sure we can all relate to, because we can all make mistakes. So I sort of thought about it like a friend, one of those friends that you say, oh, do you know anything about such and such? And they proceed to give you all that they know about the subject. And you have to take it with a grain of salt, don't you? Because like myself now, what I'm saying, I might be completely off the wall and don't know even what I'm talking about. But you listen to what I have to say, and then you toddle off and you check it up for yourself. So I guess that's what we have to do with the Chat GBT. For myself, I can utilise that program for quite a few things, like for brainstorming, simplifying a question. Like if it's a subject I'm not familiar with, I can get a very simplified answer, and I can keep prompting it until I get the answer that I best understand. We can write a book if we wanted to, get AI to help us if we've got writer's block. Any studying at all, journaling, all those kind of things can be used. But the more complex AI programs, like for example that doctors use, you go to visit a doctor and they will record your what you're saying, and that'll go in your notes, and you will give them your symptoms, and they will have a look on their computer and find out what symptoms, perhaps those what diseases or illnesses those symptoms might be found in. So professionals are relying heavy on it. Therefore, there may be an error there. It does make you wonder. You can get it to code programs and things like that. But those are all the pros anyway, that there's lots more to it, and it's such a vast subject. that I am only just beginning to look at. Because as a baby boomer, of course, I was taught shorthand, for example. Well, that's obsolete. That was obsolete years ago when they brought in a dictaphone machine. Um, so I have to move with the times and not be stagnant. But with the pros, there's always cons, because that's how life is. It's all balance, isn't it? But one of the biggest cons to it is that it runs the risk of having what they call model collapse. That is, that AI is learning off AI, and if it's got a mistake, then it's learning more mistakes, and those mistakes get more and more until it's finally lost sight of the truth. I can remember years ago, back in the 80s, I was heavily involved in porcelain doll making. And I got to the stage where I was so interested in it that I did some sculpturing and made my own mould. It was from plaster Paris, and you poured the porcelain slip into that mould to create a porcelain doll head and hands and feet. But of course, you could only take a cast from that so many times before it would wear out. And likewise, you can actually cast a doll from it as the original, and then make another new plaster Paris cast from that second doll, and so on. But you can only do that, recreating molds, up to 3 to 5 times, because otherwise each time the doll shrinks, of course, because the porcelain shrunk. So each time the doll head was getting smaller. But not only that, the features would start to be deformed, shall we say, and the details would not be so prominent. It would get a blur. So I can only understand the AI situation. It's not entirely like that, but that's the way I can best imagine it, that things will sort of degenerate as they progress rather than improve. Now, I actually asked the Chat GBT what its thoughts were on that. What does AI see as the progressive plan that it has for itself? Was it going to be a positive one or a negative one? I'll read it because I'm bound to get it wrong, but it said training AI could create feedback loops which reduce accuracy, creativity, and amplify past mistakes. So it also said that evidently humans, as they call us, are working hard to check and try and alleviate this problem. But it is definitely a problem, and that it just depends how well humans keep their eye on it as to how it's all going to sort of turn out. Will I use it? I probably will to a certain extent, but being the person I am, I'm not going to throw away all my books. I shall keep all those old lovely smelly books, and I think I can only use it as much as I would an acquaintance who, the sort, you ask them something, but they're not fully dependable. Some days they get things right, other days, depending on what they've been doing, they might really lead you down the wrong path. So with that in mind, I think I will just be very, very cautious. What about you? What do you think? Do you use it? How do you use it? I mean, it's quite interesting. It's interesting times. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it, and I'd be happy to see a comment. In fact, I love to see the comments. So I hope that gives you some food for thought, and until next time, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.